Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. It is Sunday, the 30th of the 7th, 2023, and I want to start this daily market update off with a bit of appreciation for everybody that tunes in daily and continues to like, comment, subscribe, and support this channel. It really does mean the world to me, and we don't say thank you enough. So there you go. Thank you very much, guys. I really do appreciate it. We, as always, have a lot to cover in this market update. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin. You know, we've got an interesting week ahead, not as volatile as the week that we've just came from. However, there is quite a bit going on. So we will, at the end of the video, go over the week ahead and what you guys should expect and look for. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin, of course. We're going to be looking at some comments about the US dollar in regards to how other countries are now starting to view the United States, the dollar as a reserve currency, and the entire global system and how it works, which is a dollar-based system. I think it is inevitable that we will move away from a dollar-based system. Now, I don't think that happens overnight, but I think gradually it does. And the reason being is because if I was another country, I would be looking already, if you can, to move away. And what we've seen happen with obviously the war that's going on and things like this, where we've seen the dollar really be weaponized. And I'm not saying that that was a good or a bad thing, but what I am saying is from the dollar being a reserve currency, it kind of puts that in jeopardy, because a global currency really should be agnostic and sort of apolitical and serve the role of being a currency. When that currency can be used as a weapon, certainly in regards to the country or countries that it's being used as a weapon against, they're going to look to jump ship. So this was some really interesting comments that we had talking about we need a new financial architecture globally. I do think that's coming. I've always said that the introduction of Bitcoin is almost too good to be true in this whole Satoshi narrative. I would love to believe it. I somewhat believe it, I guess, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like there are alternative powers behind the creation of Bitcoin and its implementation into the world. We're then going to be talking about governments can program central bank digital currencies with expiry dates and to restrict undesirable purchases, according to Expire Pressed of the World Economic Forum. This is coming, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. There's no doubt about it. You know, they're also going to attach digital identities to it. You're going to have a kind of Chinese-style credit score. And this is the next evolution of them controlling your life. They're doing it through money. Money is the very tool that's used to enslave you. If you do not believe you're a slave to money in the financial system, don't go to work tomorrow or don't make your payment. Now, I'm not saying, it's a financial slavery that everyone is in. And actually what we try and do on this channel, and we believe crypto can really provide this opportunity, is help grow your financial freedom and ability, because the more money you have, and it shouldn't be like this, the more freedoms you have, the more things you can do, so on and so forth, through the opportunity of investing in a technological revolution that's still very early in regards to where it's going. You know, blockchain is going to run everything. We have another win against the SEC in regards to another court decision. And then I'm going to be talking, not to pick on this individual, I'm unfamiliar, but I think Twitter has a lot of interesting takes, I'll say that. This was interesting because I think this leads to more dollar downside. It's already spilt and sort of played its hand in that way, than just a surge randomly. A surge will come. It's going to be on the yield curve playing out and uninverted. We've got a while until that happens. But actually, this kind of ties up with the fact that maybe you could be at the lower band here of this before you get that surge to the upside on the back end of whatever kind of news narrative it is. So let's get into Bitcoin, guys. Let's start the video off. You know, ultimately, we've got a progressive path forward that we think Bitcoin is going to get to. Bitcoin very much just following the NASDAQ. And this is really important chart because history is very much playing out. You know, history doesn't often repeat, but it certainly rhymes. And you can see actually the NASDAQ historically has led, just like it's doing today, Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin seems to consolidate and kind of chop around, usually the NASDAQ's in sort of pointing in the direction. And this is why we've used, and we were very right, we should be all in stocks, not crypto, because we've called the stock market, I think, better than pretty much anybody I've seen, certainly in regards to when we got into the market and just how much it's done in the direction. You know, we used Microsoft as our kind of poster child. This is coming for the crypto space, and you're here at the moment. You've still got this surge to come. You know, this is a stage 2 breakout, got your stage 1 base. We are teaching stage analysis in the Patreon at the moment. It's well worth learning. I do believe it is the best method for retail investors to learn so that they can mitigate and not get wrecked again and actually think for themselves when it comes to the market with a toolkit given to them. You know, you've got this to come for Bitcoin. That is absolutely my belief. You know, Bitcoin's still sort of in this sort of period. And it's all happening in a sort of inverse head and shoulders like fashion, isn't it? Very common that markets finish in this kind of a manner. You start to get this structure, typically, you know, giving you targets and a technical structure to go off rather than what we did at the start of the year, which was positioned for that upside. So altcoins we think are going to move. I think we've got a lot of altcoins in our portfolio that are going to do exceptionally well and really set people up. And we talk about a lot of them on the channel, so I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. Let's move on. Quick comment perhaps on the stock market, actually, before I move on. You're going to get the futures opening tonight. Stock market's done good. It's going to have a pullback. It's done amazing. It's going to have a pullback at some point. Could be quite a sharp one that likely gets bought up. You do have higher targets for the S&P. There was somebody, was it Citi? We're also now predicting that. We've, you know, been very much on this. You've got the likes of Meta doing exceptionally well. I mean, you've got the bears out there that have just, I mean, it's unbelievably wrong over the past, you know, 8-9 months now, and kind of almost doubling down at this point, which doesn't make much sense. Kind of like, you know, a lot of them were actually quite bullish in the bear market, and then they doubled down after FTX, and we were like, whoa, hang on. It's not the way you want to do it. So let's listen to this. This was interesting, and then we'll maybe even pivot back into the dollar, talk about this, and then look at a few other interesting things going on.
They are printing money. They are not manufacturing anything at all. It's printing money. And this has been one of their weapons globally. The monetary system, the global monetary system, controlled by dollar and euro, has been used. Sanctions here, sanctions there, sanctions there, grabbing this account, grabbing that account, has been one of their tools. This is not going to continue indefinitely. And we need a new financial architecture globally, not controlled by euro, not controlled by the dollar, not controlled by other currencies.
Very interesting. You know, I think this is a future that we are moving towards. We're seeing a lot of action come out of BRICS, which are looking to do kind of a gold-backed currency. It does beg the question. We also did a video talking about a global reset and actually how I think it's going to play out. I think it's going to play out basically on the back end of mass US-backed bond defaults. Very interesting video. I don't think enough people saw that and maybe gave it as much credibility as I think it deserves, because I really do think that this is how things play out. You know, if you look at how we went from a gold standard, it was because of the realization that actually the US didn't have as much gold as they had promised, were backing the dollars, and everyone would have collapsed on the back end of that. So they all kind of agreed to go off of it. Same thing happens with the new system that comes in. You know, people aren't going to reluctantly, or people are going to be reluctant to get onto it. So how do they do that? Well, they don't give you a choice. They say, okay, well, there's no alternative here other than entire global collapse. And this is the new system that we're going to propose. And actually, you know, I do think this comes to fruition, and we end up on a global system, a one world currency system. Kind of lost my train of thought with where I was going there, but I think that the dollar is going to continue to lose dominance at this point. I would say this is in a stage 4 downtrend until it shows us that it's now going into stage 1, then back into a stage 2 and it's based. I think this sees further downside. You've ran into this level here, which we initially did expect the pullback on, and we got it. However, you did have some strong, some supportive dollar news in regards to GDP, and some sort of dovish news from the euro. You know, you got this real resistance level here. You know, you're kind of flirting with it. I think the dollar sees more downside. I think a lot of these takes come from people who are bearish and want the dollar to spike here. The dollar will spike in this kind of manner, but off of the back end of fear, uncertainty, and all these other kind of things. Maybe we have the yield curve play out, and I think it's a lot more probable this makes its way down to the bottom end of the range. Then it just turns around here, which kind of supports a lot of the narratives that we're talking about. Let's talk about a CBDC and the kind of progressions that we're seeing there. Then we'll move on to the SEC's recent loss, and then we'll talk about the week ahead.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like say ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC.
I mean, in the Western world, they push those things to their citizens. When he talks about pornography and drugs there. It's very much a culture in the Western world, which is, I personally think has, I think at the end of the day, people are allowed to do what they want, in my opinion, as long as they don't infringe on anybody else's rights. But, it's very interesting. This is the world we're moving towards. They're going to bring total control. I'm actually in favor of cash, to be honest, because, you don't, and do you want the government knowing everything you're spending your money on? Well, they kind of already do in the form of, their coalition with banks, but it's a scary world that we're moving towards. And like I say, even though I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, I think most Bitcoin maxis don't even realize that they're maxis. They're more Lightning Network maxis than they are Bitcoin maxis. If you look at Satoshi's vision, very clearly in the opening paragraph, he says, do not implement a third party, because you kind of contradict everything that's trying to go on here, but they always seem to ignore that. But, Bitcoin really is special. It's really brought an amazing question to the world that needed to be asked and is kind of getting answered. And actually, I think Bitcoin to come about in 2008, when the world looked drastically different to now, is, the kind of correctness of it, how right it's been is astonishing in my opinion. I really take note of things that are very good at predicting the future, and Bitcoin certainly is that. And just a quick comment on how different the world is from 2008 to now. I mean, it feels like certainly in the West, things have got so much worse. I mean, if I go out for dinner or want to go to a bar or something, there's certain cities in the UK where it's just, you're almost uneasy because you've got people kicking off left, right, and centre. And certainly when I'm abroad, you don't seem to see that as much. But anyway, enough of a rant about the kind of demise of the Western world. It is what it is. So talking about the SEC, a US DC Court of Appeals decided to overturn the SEC's decision to exempt the exchange offering Spike's future MIX for being arbitrary and disproportionate. This will likely have relevance for the Bitcoin ETF and legal battle between Grayscale and the SEC. SEC seem to be winning massively. And again, we spoke about the what was the doctrine that's there? It's kind of a doctrine that says actually we give regulatory agencies sort of a wide berth, but at the same time, if they overstep the mark, we'll rein them back in. And that's what we're seeing happening with the SEC. The SEC are just doing a power grab. He serves the SEC. And ultimately, they want to get as much jurisdiction as possible. And they're going to the courts to work all this out. And they're losing a lot of ground in regards to that. And regulations, I think, once we get a lot more clarity on them, actually, it's the very thing that propels this market into a dramatic bull. This take on the Dixie, I didn't quite think was right. However, that's just my take. And not to pick on this individual, unfamiliar with the individual, but I see a lot of takes like this on Twitter. We saw lots of takes about the pivot that we spoke about yesterday, and people kind of like, they miss out things, they don't properly look at it, they highlight areas where it fits their narrative but not others. Go and look at it for yourself, guys, and you'll see very quickly that actually Twitter, being one of the greatest places to get information from, in my opinion, but also one of the worst. Go and look historically at the past 40 years at what happened at the point of what the markets did at the point of where they stopped upping interest rates, which is what we're approaching before we approach a pivot, which does, I think it's 8 times out of 10 have historical negative repercussions with it. And we're on board with that. You know, we think yield curve could line up without playing out and so on and so forth, but it comes later on down the line. So moving on to the week ahead, guys. Monday, we've got PMIs from China. We've got Eurozone GDP, which is going to be interesting for the Dixie. We saw a stronger GDP in the US. We might not see that in the UK and certainly Europe. We got Chicago's PMI. This was horrifically down the last time. Tuesday, we've got Reserve Bank of Australia's rate decision. Again, lots of things going on with the dollar. US IMF manufacturing. German unemployment rate. Wednesday, we've got ADP employment report, USEI crude oil inventories. Thursday, we got Bank of England rate decision, and then Friday, we got non-farm payrolls. This is going to be the one to watch, really, guys, and certainly for the dollar. This is the big event, and we'll certainly be watching that. So get ready for the week ahead. We'll see what the futures market opens up like. The S&P and the stock market's had an amazing run. A pullback is coming. When? I can't say it's going to be now. Gold did pretty well, actually. It closed quite well, considering the week it had with dollar. Dollar's seen a bit of strength. Does it roll here? We will see. Lots of economic data to kind of decide that. And of course, Bitcoin. Let's take a look actually at the lower time frames. Interesting. Actually, we would long that. Not particularly happy that it's kind of grinding up. Watch for this to break. And then look for maybe a double bottom scenario. Or if it kind of holds this structure, could break to the upside of this, and you could be back in this area here, which you're probably going to find a little bit sharp, and then you might get news and it takes you up. We did say actually previously, taking all the draws off, getting it on all. I hate how TradingView's done this. I think it's a mistake on their behalf. Very common that you get this stab down. We were very much predicting this. You consolidate and then you see that leg up, and then actually it's fierce. And this is the very thing that, again, gives you that steps back to go and overtake the hurdle that you're trying to clear. On that note, I'm going to leave you. Have a great week, guys. Again, massive thank you and appreciation to everybody that stays locked into this channel and continues to support it through the good times and the bad. We're going to be here for you. On that note, I'm going to leave you. See you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.